As the sun rose slowly, the day that seemed ordinary revealed its steady march toward an inevitable end. The early hours of that Monday found Jill Dando at the heart of a city that never truly sleeps. London's streets, still damp from an overnight drizzle, shimmered under the first rays of morning. Cars hissed by on the damp asphalt, and a cool breeze carried the faint promise of spring. From an outside perspective, there appeared nothing unusual in the calmness that wrapped her world. Yet, every step she took that day, every movement traced by the dawn light, would soon become part of a final and fateful tapestry. Far from the bustling city center, Jill spent the night at her fiancé's residence in Chiswick. The home, modest yet comfortable, was illuminated by the soft, pale glow of a new day. Through the windows, the skyline glinted with a delicate sparkle. Neighbors, still half lost in slumber, might have noticed her silhouette against the curtains if they chanced to look outside, but there was no overt sign of the tremendous significance this day would hold. She moved through the space with a quiet efficiency, checking the time, taking note of any last-minute details for upcoming work obligations, and mentally running through errands that awaited her. From the corner of the living room, a television softly recapped the early morning news. Though Jill was known for her polished presence in front of BBC cameras, this morning she was simply part of the city's collective rhythm, a single individual preparing for another day. Outside the home, the rising sun revealed blossoming trees and newly awakened birds flitting among the branches. The mood was serene, accompanied by the gentle hum of early commuters starting their routines. At this hour, Jill's professional persona remained tucked away. She had, after all, been a familiar face on television screens across the nation. Viewers recognized her confident smile, her poised demeanor, and the warmth she projected during broadcasts. Yet in this private moment, all of that was set aside. She was no longer the journalist or presenter. She was a woman quietly tending to the details of her personal life, engagement plans, future commitments, and the day's basic tasks. Shortly after sunrise, she gathered her belongings and stepped outside. The air retained a slight chill, causing a faint wisp of breath to form in front of her. As she made her way to her car, the neighborhood remained mostly still, except for a stray cat winding around a lamppost and the distant rumble of a delivery truck. From a purely external vantage point, Jill appeared relaxed, perhaps savoring the last moments of a calm morning before plunging into the momentum of her schedule. Even so, time was ticking forward, indifferent to personal plans or future dreams. In the ambient quiet, there were no warning signs, no tense shift in the breeze, no sudden alarm echoing down the street. The day seemed as routine as any other, offering no premonition of the events that would later stop the city and soon the world in its tracks. Here and now, it was just the start of a typical London morning, with Jill Dando beginning what should have been an unremarkable day. Little did anyone realize, including her, that these first light-filled moments would be her last ordinary dawn. The hours advanced, but fate had already been written. As mid-morning approached, Jill Dando navigated London's familiar maze of streets with measured ease. Traffic was heavy but predictable, a chorus of horns and rumbling engines blending into the city's routine. From an outside perspective, she could be seen guiding her vehicle smoothly through intersections, the sunlight reflecting off the windshield as she joined countless others bound for appointments and errands. Those who recognized her might have offered a courteous nod or a glance of pleasant surprise, but most remained absorbed in their own hurried agendas. Meanwhile, in the background, the metropolis pulsed with its usual energy. Shop doors opened, coffee shops bustled, and the clatter of construction formed a steady undercurrent. Jill had tasks to complete this day, some related to her upcoming wedding plans, others tied to her professional responsibilities. Hours slipped by, and in fleeting moments, she likely checked her schedule or answered a quick message. Everything about her demeanor, from the calm set of her shoulders to her composed expression, suggested that nothing was amiss. Yet, in the swirl of activity, subtle hints of tension might have gone unnoticed. Time moved forward with relentless momentum. Though the city offered its standard blend of routine and busyness, a greater design was at work, silently converging on the path of one of its most recognized faces. As the hours passed, shadows grew longer and darkness crept closer. By late morning, Jill Dando's vehicle was spotted gliding down quieter residential roads in Fulham. The sun was now stronger, illuminating neat rows of terraced homes painted in soft, inviting hues. A few passers-by might have turned to watch the familiar figure step onto the pavement, but no one sensed the undercurrent of fate drawing tight around her. The sidewalks were orderly, front gardens well-maintained, and a gentle rustle of leaves hinted at a pleasant afternoon ahead. CCTV cameras in the area later captured fleeting images of her arrival. From the vantage point of these silent observers, she moved purposefully, her posture upright, her stride steady. At first glance, there seemed no reason for alarm. Neither did any passerby observe unusual behavior. No anxious glances over her shoulder, no hurried footsteps betraying apprehension. In reality, these were her final steps on an unremarkable street. The rhythms of daily life, neighbors returning from errands, a jogger passing by, continued without interruption. Yet an invisible countdown was nearing its end. Minute by minute, the ordinary framework of the day began to feel charged with an intangible weight. Had there been a subtle sense of disquiet in the air, it remained unspoken and swiftly eclipsed by the lull of normality. Unknown to everyone around her, Jill Dando was on the threshold of an irreversible moment, captured only by silent cameras and the unblinking eyes of history. And then the moment arrived. The threads of destiny snapped. Midday settled over Fulham with a peaceful calm, the sunlight turning every window pane into a flashing mirror. Jill Dando approached the front steps of her home on Gowan Avenue, a place she should have found comfort and familiarity. Yet in the span of a heartbeat, a shot rang out, a single, devastating echo that fractured the stillness of the neighborhood. From an external view, the sudden crack of gunfire seemed almost impossible in such a calm setting. A few startled residents rushed to their windows, searching for the source of the violent disruption. A moment later, a lone figure lay collapsed at the doorstep. In the hush that followed, tension gripped the atmosphere as neighbors began to register what had just transpired. Urgent calls to emergency services punctured the silence, and within minutes, police and paramedics were on the scene. No one witnessed a lengthy confrontation or heard a drawn-out argument. There was only the sharp sound of a single shot and the abrupt finality it brought. The few who did catch a glimpse described a brief, chilling instant that would become etched forever in collective memory. Amid the flashing lights of police vehicles and the hurried steps of first responders, the gravity of the tragedy sank in. Jill Dando, a cherished television presenter, lay gravely injured. Time had run out, leaving only stunned onlookers and an overwhelming sense of disbelief. An icon had fallen, and the world reeled in shock. News of Jill Dando's shooting spread with the same swiftness that once carried her trusted broadcasts into countless homes. In the hours after the attack, television bulletins interrupted regular programming, their anchors, somber-faced, relaying the grim confirmation of her passing. A sense of collective disbelief gripped the nation. Only a short while before, viewers had seen her poised and confident on various BBC programs. Now, an unthinkable narrative had taken shape. one delivered with the urgency that marks a seismic event. Cameras swarmed the Fulham area, capturing images of police cordons, bouquets of flowers placed by devastated fans, and a flurry of investigators combing every inch of the street. The public's grief was instantaneous. Across newspaper headlines and radio updates, her name appeared alongside words like shock, tragedy, and loss. Individuals who had never met her lit candles or offered silent prayers, struck by the abruptness of the horror. In the midst of the media storm, speculation began to boil beneath the surface. Commentators, criminal experts, and even bystanders felt compelled to make sense of the event. In studios and newsrooms, reels of her past broadcasts were replayed, painting a picture of a life spent bringing information and reassurance to the public. Suddenly, the camera had swung around to focus on her, in a story no one had ever wanted to report. Jill Dando's name became a symbol of how swiftly fortune could turn, uniting a shocked world in mourning. So, what was the truth? Was it mere coincidence, or part of a grander design? In the days that followed, detectives worked tirelessly to uncover who had taken Jill Dando's life and why. The police appeal for information brought forth a flood of tips, theories, and whispered allegations. Some pointed to possible stalkers, recalling stories of the hazards public figures often endure. Others suggested more elaborate scenarios, involving organized crime or political vendettas. What was once a quiet street now transformed into a focal point of intense scrutiny, camera lenses documenting every new detail that emerged. Investigators gathered physical evidence from the scene, analyzing the ballistic trajectory and examining forensic traces. However, the clarity everyone hoped for remained elusive. Over time, names surfaced, arrests were made, but conclusive answers never seemed to arrive with absolute certainty. The case became a mirror for society's fascination with high-profile tragedies. Each new detail sparked debate. Every rumor fueled speculation about the hidden truths behind the public persona. To this day, Jill Dando's final 24 hours continue to prompt questions that overshadow her otherwise shining legacy. She was more than a journalist. She was a comforting presence in living rooms across the nation. Yet her story ended on a doorstep in Fulham, leaving behind a swirl of grief and mystery. As people look back on her life and the day that brought it to an abrupt close, they grapple with the weight of unanswered questions. Perhaps the truth lies buried beneath incomplete clues, or perhaps it escaped entirely, lost in the chaos of the moment. It remains for the world to wonder whether her death was a random twist of fate or part of a far-reaching plan, an enigma as enduring as the memory of her radiant smile.